My main ministry for 43 years was secondary education, and I taught in only 3 schools. And most of those years I taught chemistry, I did choral music, I did yearbook, lots of other things. I also did parish liturgical music through that whole period of time. So that creates the backdrop for what probably is my most favorite ministry, and that was the experience that I had beginning in 1999 at San Quentin State Prison, one of the 33 prisons in California. It was a men's institution and located in the Bay Area. There were many, many volunteers. I knew nothing about prison ministry, but there was something in my head from many years before that had been something that drew me. So a serendipitous meeting with Brother Rufino Zaragoza, a Franciscan musician and composer who was doing a little volunteering at San Quentin and was headed off for a 3 months study tour and was really looking for someone to fill in. And I just happened to be it. So I asked if I could come and see what it might be like. Well, I was hooked the very first Sunday that I was there. I recall sitting next to a gentleman who was playing bass guitar and then sat through the other parts of the liturgy. And I had the overwhelming sense that I was sitting next to a very holy person. And that was my introduction to whatever it was, certainly the spirit that drew me to say, oh yes, I'll come back. Then I realized I could bring my guitar, and off went Rufino, and I became the de facto person to assist with the men, really a ragtag group of musicians and singers who were helping with the 2 services in the Catholic chapel on Sundays. I discovered in those now 16 years that I was there, Sunday after Sunday and Holy Week after Holy Week, that the people there were pretty ordinary. They were like people you'd meet in any parish where you're trying to get volunteers to help with music. You have some people who are very skilled, others not, people interested, reluctant, skilled musicians. Lots of instrumentation was available because there were all sorts of talents running around in the prison population. So it was a familiar area to me, and I began learning what it was to be present to them. Someone told me a piece of wisdom. Not only will the men really ask, will you come? Will you be an outside visitor? Will you come and share time and worship with us? But what they're really asking is, and will you come back? Will this be a place where we can count on you? People think that when you go into a prison it's scary. Well, the first couple of times it might have been because it was all new. Lots of clanging doors and guards with guns. But then in the Catholic chapel there were none of those things. It was just a rather ugly but lovely place to worship. Most of the men that came were predominantly long-term persons, many what they call lifers. They've been sentenced for their offense 15 years to life, 25 years to life, 50 years to life. And what that means is there's no surety at all that they have a short or terminate or definite sentence. that was very hard, to walk with the men who did all the things that they needed to do, who truly were not the same people that committed the offense, sometimes when they were very young. And to be judged so harshly, and to have the hopes that they had built up but tried to temper dashed. Over the 16 years that I was there and following that, I know about a dozen who were deemed suitable and made it through the process, and now, with the exception of one of them, they are all through their parole period and doing well. I keep in touch with a few. In fact, one particularly is on my heart. My lead bass player and then drummer became the de facto leader of the choir. And I left in 2015, and I continued to correspond with this man. His name is Dwight. He was released in 2020 after 18 years of incarceration. And we continue to stay in touch, not just in letters. Now we Zoom once a month. And his friendship with me, and I being his friend, is very, very enriching. So when I think about what prison ministry meant for me, it was moving out of my comfort zone, but really it was using the gifts that I had as a teacher, a musician, a liturgist, a religious woman, a person who likes people. And if I had to say, how might this be tied back into our core values? The obvious one is freedom, but not freedom in the sense that we think of necessarily with persons who are incarcerated, but the freedom to be all that one can be, and to be known and loved and honored, particularly in a system that I can say was and is dysfunctional. And it's designed to dehumanize the people who are incarcerated. So if freedom is the ability to be all that one can be, all that's one's called to be, I felt that my presence there helped the men know that they were valued and important and not forgotten. And that was the basis of our interaction and our friendship and our music and our worship. And it was so enriching. I always remember a little phrase of Helen Prejean, a quote that I've heard her use a couple of times. God does not give us a searchlight to know the whole path. God gives us a little pen light to just see the next step. So my first step in September of 1999 led to a whole long, wonderful path that I could never have dreamed of, and has so enriched my BVM life. And I believe through me, many of my sisters have come to understand a part of our population that is often forgotten or vilified, and they are our brothers and sisters too.